Hello, 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 everyone. Welcome to the ItCast. I'm your host, Nika Sherelle, and I'm rusty. Okay. Hello, 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 everyone. Welcome to the ItCast Real Talk on Sex. I am your host, Nika Sherelle. The ItCast is our community outreach podcast that increases diversity in conversations on health and sexuality. Through this work, we are creating a world where all people feel loved, honored, and respected. This episode is brought to you by the House of Sherelle. You can find out more about our work at nikasherelles.com and find our online store at triggerhappytoy.com. There you go. Click the QR code. This episode is also brought to you by the International Institute for Sexual Empowerment, a 501c3 nonprofit that creates a safe space to talk about sex. We have some events coming up. Please check out our calendar of events at nikasherelles.com or iiseglobal.org. If you would like to have one-on-one coaching with me, please visit my Calendly to book a free connection session. We want to hear from you, and I am here to help and serve. So feel free to ask me anything. Get access to our bonus content on Patreon, subscribe to this YouTube channel, and share with your community. Okay, let's dive in. This week's topic is Into the Light, Real Talk on the Gender Journey. This is in honor of Trans Day of Remembrance, November 20th. And today in the booth, we have Mallery Jenna Robinson. Mallery Jenna Robinson is an Afro-Caribbean transgender woman and advocate for transgender and HIV healthcare in Los Angeles, California. She began acting at 16, starring in The Crucible, and went on to appear in A Raisin in the Sun and The Scarlet Letter. She taught middle and high school science and history from 2014 to 2019, co-leading the drama club and creating impactful plays. Mallery's work includes producing the award-winning film Two Eyes and starring in Tales of the Trancestors and TransLations. She hosts A Hateful Homicide, a true crime podcast on violence against transgender people, and provides transgender empathy trainings for organizations like Sony and LA County. Additionally, she is a model, singer, and subject of the documentary The Manifest of Mallery. Mallery, welcome to the show.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. How are you doing, Nika?
I am spectacular. Thank you so much.
You're so welcome, and happy Trans Day of Remembrance.
Thank you. Thank you. Likewise.
Yeah,
Likewise.
take a
Whew.
moment and remember those who aren't here, because today's one of those days that we have to really reflect on our loved ones who are no longer here. And thank you for this episode.
Thank you. Thank you.
Appreciate you.
Okay, so I am super grateful that we get to put something together like this for the holiday and the holidays and just really making a difference and an impact for people. So let's start by talking about I want to know who you are and how you define yourself culturally.
Oh, wow. So, hello, everyone. My name is Mallery Jenna Robinson, pronouns she, her, hers. I am an Afro-Caribbean transgender woman. I culturally come from Uganda, Liberia, Haiti, as well as some of our indigenous lands here in the US. I am humbled and honored to come from such a melanated group of people and to be able to know my lineage and the beautiful ancestry that it entails, especially those from Uganda and Liberia. There's, some royal ancestry and stuff there. So it's good to, right? I'm like, yeah. So it's good to know that, like, when people like try to remind you that sometimes other cultures are more, royal or, wealthy or whatever the case may be. Because so many times our African and Caribbean cultures don't get cited as like having royalty or, that kind of sense of identity. And I want to remind people of that yes, like ancestry.com, 23andMe. I'm so happy I was able to go through and like learn more about my ancestry and know that, yeah, that's some royal roots.
Yeah. Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, a queen and a goddess all
Takes
day.
one to know one. Takes one to know one.
Ah, and I love that you bring in all of your ancestral roots because I think inside of this conversation, we're looking at not just the gender journey, but the gender journey from that socio perspective, because there's the inside and there's the outside, and there's so many conversations. I mean, just looking right now at what's going on in Uganda and the people there and how much they need support and a voice and all these things. And that is just a sliver, but a sliver of what I know that's going on. So thank you for presencing them in this conversation and giving them space.
Yes, yes, yes. Because you know what, again, there isn't much space for us, especially as, Afro-Caribbean, Black, trans femme, brown, even trans femme folks, and masculine folks. There aren't a lot of spaces for us. Even when we think of like trans journeys, a lot of them that are profiled are typically of our white counterparts. And while those journeys are incredible and beautiful to cover, I think we have to also be very real with ourselves and say that not every trans person's journey is the same. And then certainly it gets even a little different as those, like you said, socio and marginalities and intersectionalities all start to kind of layer itself. And it's really important to remember
Yes, yes.
that.
And I love that you pointed out they're not all the same.
Yeah.
Like there's and I'm just gonna acknowledge there's a lot of privilege in a lot of people's ability to transition, whether it's,
Mhm.
being from families that are gonna be more accepting, whether it's having the financial access to being able to transition in a way that's not just not just affirming, but healthy.
Right.
It's going to be healthy for the person. So there's so many layers of it. And I'm just glad that you presence that because I don't think from the outside, people see all those details. They just see whatever is on the surface, but they don't see the depth of the experience.
Oh no, absolutely not. And then especially if you're only getting kind of a microwaved version, like a quick kind of snippet of someone's life. So you may be looking at someone like Caitlyn Jenner's, for example, or Jazz Jennings, these, two very different trans feminine individuals, but both come from like, white ancestry. So it's very easy to say, like,
Mhm.
okay, Jazz comes from a place of privilege and her family supports her and she's had these affirming procedures. And Caitlyn comes with privilege and wealth. All trans people must be able to, have that experience and have those supportive families and have the means to do that. And that's just not the case,
Yeah.
especially for our community members who are survivor sex workers. As we think of today with TDOR in this list, we have a lot of our community
Mm.
members not only by suicide and honoring that, but also those who are murdered. And that's where hateful comes in. As thank you for mentioning that, because our survivor sex workers, those who are Black and brown primarily, as that's the majority of our survivor sex workers, a lot of times, a lot of them are the ones who are getting into vehicles or meeting people online and then coming up murdered. And so these are the conversations, and this is why Hateful Homicide exists, and so many other platforms as well, to raise awareness around all trans identities and journeys and show that, yes, we do have those great, beautiful journeys of people like Caitlyn and Jazz, but we also have individuals like Malaysia Booker and so many others who have just lost their lives due to simply being who they are. And that's a conversation that's important to have too, especially today.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes. Oh, and this has been something I've said even from the beginning of my work that people should not have to die because of these things. People's lives should not be in jeopardy in any way whatsoever. And to be able to have a platform that exposes that and talks about
Mhm.
it, it makes it more difficult to hide because when
Yeah.
something goes unnoticed, if it's quiet, nothing ever gets poked up about it, then it can just disappear and the whole situation we can pretend like it never existed, and that's not true. It's not true.
It's not, and that's the reality. And I spoke about this not too long ago, Nika, where it was like we're in spaces And unfortunately, I saw a quote, and there was a quote that said, the media has a way of like persuading people's minds. And so when you're hearing things such as, oh, predators trying to change people to be trans and stuff, and then you hear about them being, our community being murdered and missing, there's almost a sense of like blaming, right? Like, oh, well, because there are these type of people. And it's like, no, we're human beings who are, and you gave a beautiful biography of me. Thank you. Right. So I'm more than just whatever stereotype or stigma that you may want to see me as. I'm an actress. I'm a singer. I'm a model. I'm an educator, right? I've worked with students and children for 5 years, teaching middle and high school children openly and proudly as a trans teacher. And it's so interesting. I don't mean to get too off topic, but I just have to say really quickly, one of my teacher friends back in Florida, she said, Mallery, I think that's why they created the Don't Say Gay in Florida. She said, girl, because you were saying it so much in all the classrooms and all the kids were so happy. She was like, girl, I think they was like, oh, we got to make sure. If she don't, she may never say that again. So, I was the Lord, I know I had to trans flag them and everything. So, but that was just me. I was letting them know, be yourself. You know what I mean? And so, yes, my friend, I can go on and on, but I want to turn it back over to you for any additional questions and remarks.
Well, and I love what you're leaning into when it comes to calling out the prejudice. Gender prejudice. This is something else that I know we get to talk about, and it is deep. You've pointed out a couple of layers here in the US, and I definitely want to yeah, let's take a minute.
Inhale. Exhale.
It's baffling the way that they have taken these modes of cultural expression and they've weaponized and demonized and vilified them to the degree that people think it's okay to cause this level of harm, because then they're what is it? They're the hero. They didn't do anything wrong. They're actually fixing a problem. And that's not that. I mean, you can't people as a group are not a problem. It's not a fixable thing. Looking at someone's like identity, we can't. I feel like to try and fix that is to break the human.
I felt that, because that's literally, again, the list this year from the Human Rights Campaign: suicide and homicide. Both is, and there was so many suicides this year, just because, again, trigger warning, my apologies, but just, to uplift that, because you're taking away people's civil rights and civil liberties. And we have so many trans men on that list too. And you have to also think about the legislative of Roe versus Wade and how that impacted trans masculine health or non-binary individuals too, who also are navigating that reproductive journey. And all of them have been impacted. And again, it's breaking the human spirit. And so many of us right now, since the recent elections, are kind of huddling and just like, bracing ourselves for, what's to come next these past 4 years, because a lot of there's a lot of federal bans, a lot of federal courts, excuse me, that are uplifting those bans from the states, saying, hey, yes, you can ban trans care until an individual is an adult. So that's a concern. And there's a lot of conversations that I have community members. I'm originally from Montgomery, Alabama. So a lot of my family's there. I go home and visit. And, I have community who is of the TGI2+, transgender, non-binary, intersex, and two-spirit experience and journey, that can tell you that, like, they don't even have a safe space there. There's no health insurance. There's so many different layers of like taking away someone's ability to be themselves. And it does lead to breaking the person, breaking the spirit. And then we see things such as, suicides. And then if it's even hard to get a job, we have community members turn to survivor sex work. And then we have our community members who become missing and murdered and blamed. And that's, again, why it was important to create A Hateful Homicide, because I was tired of hearing community tell me, Miss Mallery, girl, we getting blamed for our own deaths. And it was interesting what you said earlier, Nika, around like how it's almost like they're a hero. There's this hero syndrome of like, oh, look, I killed a trans person. And there's a term for that, the trans panic defense. As a journalist, as a reporter, these are things that I've seen in the courtrooms. People have, and when I've covered cases, they will use that trans panic because, especially in red states, where now more than ever, right? And I mean, and we see this again, even if I go into racial identities. I come from a Black family, right? So now, we're hearing things like sundown counties, and so it's just impacting everyone. You can't go here, you can't do this, and it's breaking people's spirits, but it's killing people. It's killing. What's happening is that these individuals are killing people who are transgender, non-binary, intersex, and two-spirit, simply for being who they are, and then being able to get away with it because they said, "Hey, I didn't know."
Right. Oh, she tricked me, or he
Yes.
tricked me.
They're old, tell as old as time, like the Beauty and the Beast song. Tell as old as I was tricked, I was fooled, and half of them already know. They've been talking to you, they meet you on the queer apps, and but again, they know, oh, if I do snap or if I do get angry and if I hurt this person, oh, nothing's gonna really happen because the world, or especially this country right now, is telling them it's okay to attack us, to
Yeah,
harm us.
you're disposable.
Sorry.
Oh.
Girl, I'm telling y'all, and then with today and just the names, and it's sad because, I worry for next year. And the list is, it'll be starting tomorrow, the list for 2025. So, I'm worried starting on the 21st. We pray nothing happens. So far, I haven't heard anything yet. Everyone's been okay, but I just don't want our numbers to keep going up. I was telling someone, Nika, I said, it would be nice to say A Hateful Homicide was coming to an end. We'll have a series finale. But, that I just don't foresee right now. But this is why we need to have these conversations so we can change people's minds and hearts who are on this, who's in this call, who's on this audience, and can be like, okay, hey, I know someone who's trans, and don't treat them that way. They can become more of an ally and accomplice and a support, and not just sitting back and using your phone to film, but actually getting out there and say, hey, don't put your hands on. That's what we need to see more people. And I know it's scary, and I know it's difficult. I know we don't want to get involved, but we're losing too many lives not to.
Yeah, that's real. That is so real. So I want to talk, looking at society. You brought up in the beginning your Afro-Caribbean roots and a number of other things. So I want to talk a little bit about the history of sexuality, masculinity, femininity, and how it relates to the Afro-Caribbean parts of the world. I think some of the things that I've heard are the layers of fear that are geared towards any type of, like, I'm not going to be gay because of the oppression and the rape and the, sorry, trigger warning, I'm all behind on that, but the different things that happen to the men as oppression and how that turned out.
Thank you. There's a case that I covered. It was Clay Queen, and the individual went by the name Dwayne. They were assigned male at birth, but they were very genderqueer, feminine, and the case occurred in circa 13, and they were about 16 or 17. They went to a party. It was in Jamaica, and so they were called the Gully Queen because anything, especially about our Caribbean powers, the Gully is almost referred to as this like underground, kind of tunnel. It's very dark and kind of sewery. So that's where a lot of the communities who are queer and trans live, right? And I live in LA now, so kind of synonymous to that here would be like Skid Row, or someplace like that where it's very, just it's not safe. And so you have all these things, and young adults and even older adults who are queer and trans in Jamaica, were living in these gullies. And Wayne specifically had to a party. It was in the summer of 2013, and unfortunately, this individual was beaten, tortured, and it was such a horrible case. And that episode that I covered, Nika, Dwayne had actually did an interview prior to their murder, just kind of talking about like living in the gullies. And one of the things that they were so hopeful for was, getting out of Jamaica, making Jamaica, coming back and making Jamaica safe. And that case resonated with me so much because, my family, especially the Caribbean side, which is through my mother, and Haitian side, and that comes through my maternal grandfather. I can remember growing up, and my maternal grandfather is still alive. He'll be 86, 27. So he's a very strong Haitian, no nonsense. What you see is what you get kind of with him. And then you have, my mom, and who's just, she's her Caribbean Afro self and just loves her. But then I have 4 brothers and myself. And so it's a total of 5. And so then you have me growing up in a family where I have 4 brothers. And essentially, I'm the only one of them out of the 5 that is feminine and speaks softly and walks delicately and likes to be indoors and prefers to knit. And so those things for
Why?
Hello.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Yeah, now you're back.
I know.
No,
I'm so sorry about that, you all.
that's okay. Are you good? What do you think, Nika? Can you hear
Yeah.
Mallery?
I can hear you now. You're moving now. The last thing I heard was knit.
Knit. Okay. Cool. Oh my goodness. Yes. So I mean, and growing up, knitting and something, being one of 5 siblings, and I have 4 brothers. I was the only one that was, again, like I said, very feminine. And I remember my grandfather, asking my mom kind of like, what's going on? Why is Mallery so feminine? And granted, he's very supportive, and has been very supportive of my gender journey as a, very strong Caribbean man. His parents immigrated from Haiti in the 30s. And so, he definitely has those roots, and we've been there. But it was interesting growing up and trying to kind of mimic my brothers, who are very like masculine Caribbean, Afro-Caribbean men. Like one of my brothers, he's very Rastafari. Well, 2 of them, excuse me. No, 3 of them, 3 or 4, because they all have their so I was like, all 3 of them. And then the 4th one, he's the only one that's got like low haircut and stuff. But these strong, masculine, brothers of mine, and I'm like this very dainty, little delicate, like little thing. And I was like, oh. And so it was I was kind of the yellow starburst in the pack, kind of that one that just stood out because it was like, yeah, you kind of go for that. So I was that kid, and my family, while they were very supportive, they did have cultural norms that did, agree with that. Especially, I specifically had that with one of my mom's brothers, one of my maternal uncles. His wife, cited religious reasons as well as cultural reasons as to why they could not affirm my gender journey, Nico. And when I tell you, it hurt me growing up because, I had no idea that me living my truth made them uncomfortable. And I had no idea that they would use our culture and, their religion as a way to weaponize my journey. Almost to the point where like I wasn't even sure if I was gonna, be in my truth, because I didn't want to like cause such an uproar. But it was actually, that same Haitian grandfather who was like, I don't know what's going on with your uncle. He wasn't raised that way. And, regardless of our culture, we also believe in love. And this family is built off of love. And so that was how everyone else in the family led was with love. And empathy came along, right? He learned my pronouns, and my grandmother, she, because she couldn't remember my pronouns for so long. So she'd be like, hey, she, how about she? I'd be like, hey, she, girl, what you doing? Girl, we got every time I do my trainings, always tell folks that they say, oh my God, I love that. I said, yeah, I said, if your family don't get the pronouns and stuff, I said, just be patient with them. I said, and sometimes you may even get a nickname out of it, like I did, she.
Yes. Oh my
But
God,
that's
I love that.
that's my friend. But that is a little bit about the culture and my family. Like I said, I'm overall very supportive, but I did have an uncle who, was like, this, we don't agree with this, we don't believe in this, our culture, our religion. And it was a challenge for a while, but again, love trumped everything else.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. And that's the kind of thing you want to hear, just those experiences where you are accepted and you are loved and all of that. Everything else doesn't matter because you are still you.
Yes. Yes. Thank you.
Yeah.
That's literally what my grandmother said. She's like, that's still my granddaughter. That's still my grandbaby, I was still at the hospital when you was born, so it was a lot of just like being able to kind over matter and just move forward.
Mhm.
And I'm happy, to be able to share that with you because I think so many times, especially in our Afro-Caribbean families and our Black families, we don't hear we don't feel like that's a narrative for our in our Latin families and our Asian families. This queer and trans. Like I've heard community members say it's hard. And I'm just, I had to cite that not everyone's journey, is that way. And again, there's even family, members who are of color and have supportive families like myself.
Yeah. Yes. I love that you said when people don't get your pronouns, just be patient with them. And it is so true. It is so true. I mean, we come from all these different backgrounds and experiences, and there's a lot of learning, and there's going to be stumbling, and there's going to be mistakes. But as long as the pathway is open, the doors of communication, the possibility, then that's the beautiful part. That's the least that we can ask for. So I love that. I love that. Um, so let's see, you touched on religion just a little bit and the oppression there. Um, is there anything more you would like to say with regard to that?
Well, I just wanted to add that, for me, I am a Christian. I do believe in God. And for me, I strongly believe that it's important to have your higher power, to have your faith, to have your belief, especially during these tough times, especially on days like today.
Mhm.
Like I had to really, talk to my higher power. I had to, talk to my guardian angels, my spirit siblings, and be like, hey, please help me get through today because it's tough at times. And so, just being able to find what, like you said, that self care, that
Mhm.
spiritual self care looks like for you, it's definitely important. It's been really cathartic for me.
Yeah. And I think there's that element when I was working on the title of this episode, I was trying to think of that thing that um that would represent like just that being affirmed, that being who you are, that love. And so the into the light part came up, and it just reminds me of that joy, the
Yes.
joy of getting to be oneself. And like as you mentioned, having that spiritual strength and that stability, just because there are people out there who will cite, scriptures and say all these different
Mm,
things, that doesn't have the right to rob you of your spiritual journey. That's what I'm hearing. That's beautiful.
absolutely. Don't let anyone steal your joy. Find that peace, find that joy, find that happiness. And maybe it does come from a spiritual base. And that sometimes can be, your home. That can be, a family member's home, a loved one's home, wherever that space is for you. But just know that, it's important to seek that sense of joy, especially during these times and days.
Yes. Now, I want to talk a bit more about things that trans people go through that would not be expected. One of the phrases that you used, and I thought this was so perfect, was hidden relationships. Can we talk a little bit more about that conversation?
Yes, absolutely. It's really important, sister, to understand that hidden relationships, by that, it's these relationships will be, especially for myself as a trans woman, I've definitely experienced it where I've dated guys who, say, yeah, we can go out and we can have a good time. We can do this. But when it came actually time to meet their fans, when it came actually time to, um, you know, do things together, actually the real stuff, being there emotional, they were never there. It was always just more of a transactional, physical kind of relationship. And it became very superficial for me, and it wasn't what I wanted. But a part of those hidden relationships, those conversations that we have to remember, is the stigmatizing, the stereotyping, right? We are telling ourselves, these cis men primarily who are getting in relationships with trans women, trans women, and they tell themselves, oh my goodness, I can't date someone like this because society says this is not what I'm supposed to be doing. Society already tells me I'm not even supposed to be transgender. And society also tells them not to be someone who's transgender.
Mhm.
So a lot of relationships become very, and a lot of times those relationships typically would be more sexual, unfortunately. And you good, sis? I just want to make sure my sister's okay.
Sorry.
I just want. I was like, we can start off if you need to. I was like, I want my sister coughing on camera. I got you, girl. I'm like, we can take two. Rebuke.
Ooh, okay, sorry, I straight choked.
I said, Lord,
Okay.
I'm trying to like go through my. I was like, sis, we need to read this. I can start over. You cough it out, girl. Cough it out, and we can take it from the top. There you go. There you go. I got you.
Okay, thank you, thank you. Okay, so we were talking about hidden relationships before I died.
Yes, ma'am, Lord. And we done brought you back to life. We revitalize, hydrate. Okay, and these hidden relationships, honey, they need to, go ahead and dehydrate, because the reality is that we have these relationships that aren't healthy. They lead to intimate partner violence. They lead to domestic violence. They lead to what we have today, T-door.
Yeah.
Because you're in these relationships. And then again, as I mentioned earlier, Nika, the first thing someone in a relationship, especially just cis man, he says is, I didn't know. I didn't know. Once the relationship isn't hidden, right? That,
Right.
exposed. Oh, I didn't know. I had no idea. And then what does one do to prove masculinity and wants to, show that they're the toughest and the roughest and they're not, transamorous? They attack, they beat, they murder. And this is what we have going on here in our communities on a day-to-day basis. These hidden relationships that aren't anywhere. They're not. Maybe, I've seen so many friends, and include myself, who have waited around year after year, month after month, day after day. This is a day he's going to be different. This is a day it's going to be better.
Right.
And it's not. And this is my survivor story of it. But there are those who didn't survive it. There's one case that I covered, Dominique Duffy, and beautiful, beautiful Black trans woman. She lived in Los Angeles. She was 31 years old, very on top of her game. She had a Mercedes. She was on a reality TV show. She was thriving. But she, like some of us, she was a little boy crazy. And unfortunately, this hidden relationship she was in resulted in the hateful homicide that happened. And so this is a very, very prime example of that. And again, please forgive me if I'm dropping so many cases, but I just want to say these victims' names too, as well. And so another one I have to talk about is an unhidden relationship, right? So what happens when those relationships you're open and families are supportive? Unfortunately, that sometimes does not save us either. There was a couple of cases that I covered. Diane Delia, a white trans woman, she was murdered in 1981 at 24 by her husband. She had undergone gender affirming surgery, which was very radical time. And her husband got married, and within a year, he and her best friend committed a hateful homicide against her. And that was a relationship where, like, his family knew, her family knew, but there was a lot of jealousy. There was a lot of resentment. And that was one from 1981, but there was one that I covered in 2019 in Miami. The girl was actually from Los Angeles as well, beautiful trans Latina girl. And she was married to a cisgendered, which is, someone whose gender journey is still the same from as they were. So she was with a cisgendered Latino man. And unfortunately, he was the episode was called Fit of a Jealous Rage. And in 2019, he murdered her. simply because she was frustrated with him. And when I did some interviews, her friends and family said how he would come up to her job and make a scene. He would wait for her. So, right. So I know it's almost kind of like a double intro, because you're almost like, well, if you're in a hidden relationship, that's not safe. But even I have to let people know that you can still be in those relationships that are very public, very open, and there can still be domestic violence and intimate partner violence as well. So
Absolutely.
look for the signs and the flags in any of them, hidden or unhidden.
Yes, absolutely. And I think it's very important to say their names. That's one of the big things about this day of remembrance. So I'm really grateful for that. And it's true. One of the things that I'm hearing there is the level of lack of safety that exists for Black women.
Mm.
Like, and women, like other Black and brown women, a number of things. And I do believe women in general, but the work that you're doing is highlighting people, for me, what it sounds like, equally.
Yes.
And I think that
Yes.
that's like, that's the kind of thing you don't find on Dateline or wherever else.
Conversations with folks, girl, where you been? You been a flower. Someone just said the other day, they was like, girl, they was like, baby, they need to take Dateline off and put you on, because they like, you covering everybody, trans men, trans women of all races, ages, identities. Oh my goodness, you have no idea. And that's what we need. We need to see all the different stories. And unfortunately, as I've talked about, the missing moms and the missing, teen girl and young white girls, is very sweet, of course, and they deserve to be covered. But we also have to make sure that we're paying attention to our indigenous women, right? Our Two-Spirit community members who are living on reservations. And there's a highway where a lot of them go missing and murdered every day.
Yeah.
And then you to communities like myself from Alabama, those urban where it's, heavily Black, these areas where it's not safe. A lot of times where I grew up. And so, you have to, there's this level of violence where I remember dealing with guys who would try to hit on me, try to, have these hidden relationships. And if I said no, they would try to get handsy and violent. And, so I was always worried about my safety, because I began my gender journey when I was 16 in 2006 in Montgomery, Alabama. So I was, one of those who can speak about the safety measure and taking that. And it was actually my brothers who would sometimes walk with me, especially from school, just to make sure that no one would try to sexually assault or anything else, because it's a real thing out there, for sure.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I love that you bring up the topic of safety, because I want to shift into that as, the conversation of being a gift for the holidays, like how we can contribute to society and the community as a whole, and just really have that generosity. So, one of the first questions I want to ask you around safety, the phrase chasers came up as we were talking. And there are other phrases out there that people write that to describe people who have these types of behaviors and the way in which they treat people. But can we talk a little bit about, how do you keep yourself safe? How do you spot people who are being predatory?
Yes, it's really interesting trying to spot people who are predatory. It's really, really interesting, because the reality is, you have people who are not who they say they are. You have, for me, the predatory behavior kicks in when you have someone who's like, "Hey, it's nice to meet you," and they're laying on that limerence, or that love bombing, Mr. Charming, and that is, and I think anyone, especially for myself personally, like, I'm very like a hopeless romantic. So like anytime I'm getting that, like, that affection, that affirmation, a lot of times that's how it starts. And then normally when, the individual has you kind of under their control, that's when the behavior changes. So it becomes a little bit more domineering, and it becomes a little bit more oppressive. They want to track you, they, see where you're going. And these things are very, again, real when it comes to safety for our community members. And one of the things that I try to talk about, there's an organization, I just want to give them a kudos, is the Trans Defense Fund. And what they do is that they provide safe defense courses. They provide safety kits to our LGBTQ community members, especially those who are trans. And I think that's really important for our community members to know, not only in LA, but around, that there are measures that are out there for you to be safe. And if you are someone who is in a partner violence relationship, you need a sense of safety, reach out to I can make sure that you all get that information. The Trans Defense Fund, they send out safes to our trans community members for free. So that way, especially if you're a survivor sex worker, or maybe you are in an intimate partner violence situation in terms of domestic, having that kit, which includes like a taser or, like a whistle and things like that, is going to, just add an extra layer of safety and security. I like to tell folks, if it can help keep you here a day longer, and you can be here the next day, I say keep it on you. Put that in your toolkit. Let this be a tool for your toolkit.
Yes.
That's your safe and sorry. And I've covered 6 seasons now, almost 5 years of true crime since moving to Los Angeles in 2019. I shifted from teaching to true crime, and 6 seasons now. So I can tell you, safety is one of the biggest concerns that survivors discuss, as well as family members and loved ones of the victims who are. How could we have kept them safe? What could we have done more, to raise awareness? And so that's one of the ways, is finding organizations that provide safe defense, and even those self-defense courses. Those are things that we can start training our community members to just armor themselves up, fight back. Never. Because I can assure you, this individual's not going to come up and just want to have a conversation when they realize you're trans, and they realize, that they can get away with it. It's not going to be a matter of, verbal assault. It's going to lead to physical. And I've seen that way much, where it goes from 0 to 100, and the trans community member does not. When that 100 hits, they are not safe. They become attacked. They become murdered.
Yeah. The Trans Defense Fund.
Yes. Yes. And I'll make sure to send it to you all too, for sure.
Perfect. Thank you. And I just want to put a highlight on love bombing. When you said that, it was like it just rang out in my ears, because I've witnessed that firsthand. I've seen this happen for people, and it's a very sneaky tactic. I don't think the people who are doing it know that they're doing it, but it is a deep manipulation and a way in which to control people. So it's like when you love bomb and then you take that away, now all of a sudden you've created a deficit in a power dynamic that would not have typically been there. So yeah, I thank you for.
No, and it's true, because I have to speak to a personal experience. My ex-husband, he did the same thing. I was legally married to a cis white man back in Florida. And yes, he knew my truth, you all. He don't know where there was no trans, none of that. I was like, you ain't for this, But as we say in the Caribbean, I pull that. But, that was the thing, right? It was this love bombing. It was this very intense love bombing. And then once I was under that control, the relationship changed dramatically and drastically. And safety was at risk. It's actually one of the reasons why I moved to California from Florida, where I was teaching, was to get, to be safer, just to provide transparency. So again, if you are in a situation, I can attest to this, and others who can as well, get out if you can. Get out as soon as you can. Develop a safety plan. Discuss with your loved ones. That's what I did when I left Florida to come to California, Nika. I discussed the safety plan with my family. We got out. My ex-husband, he didn't even see it coming, because it was just so much for my own safety. And I just have to share that, folks, because that love bombing as well, especially when you're a trans person too, like you're even more vulnerable. So like he was saying things like, I love you for who you are, and I'm so proud to be with you, right? So you're hearing these words of affirmation, right? Channeling to your love languages, and you're getting these acts of service and all, meeting the parents, and it's like, hey, and then after all that, you saw the, very controlling, like, where are you? I'm putting a tracker on you. Following. It was just very hyper intensive. disturbing behavior. I was slammed on the roof of a car by him. Unfortunately, a passerby saw what was happening and everybody's safety. I did go back that first time when that happened, but that next time when it got worse, I got out and I never looked back. But when I got out, which is a dangerous time for any woman to leave a relationship, that was when it got very, very dangerous. Him and some friends of his were, kind of swarming, stalking around the place that we shared. And then I had to essentially flee with the safety plan for my family to come to California. And so then by the time I got here, and I think that's why true crime kind of just finally resonated with me, because I felt not only so close to that, but a friend of mine by the name of Melanie Bennett went through the same thing as well. Her safety, she lost her life back in 2011 at the age of 21. We both began our journeys together. We both were born the same year, graduated high school together, and she was just so amazing. But unfortunately, she too was in a relationship that included love bombing. And that relationship did result in her murder because he became controlling, violent, and one of the things that he did, and this was in Montgomery, Alabama, where Melanie was murdered back in 2011. But one of the things is actually where the title comes from too, was actually from that man, and he was saying like how much he hated her in the courtroom. I was in the courtroom. And he just kept saying he hated her, almost like she blaming her for the fact like she tricked him, which wasn't the case. He had been dealing with Melanie for like a year, but what his attorneys told him, it's the state of Alabama. And but he kept using that word, hate her. And so I was thinking to myself, why is hate the feeling that you have for someone who's living their life? And I think for me, because I feel like that was stemmed in so many of the crimes, not only that happened to me, to Melanie, and to so many others that I've covered, I felt like the title Hateful Homicide was important to use, because I was like, this is really giving you an idea that this homicide is a result of hate, deep hate for this person being who they are. And that's where the phrase hate crimes, right? That's why we have that, because this is a direct crime towards someone. Simply, you're hating them for simply being who they are. This wasn't some premeditated or negligent harm. This is something that you're deliberately targeting someone out of hate. And I just knew it was time to raise awareness, and in my own lived experience, Nika. So I fast forward to 2024. Happy to be able to keep raising awareness and be on the other side of that. Sorry. I got you.
It's so okay, so a few things came up as you were sharing that I absolutely love. So first off, just a note that hate is a flavor of fear.
No
And
flavor of fear.
yes, we need
Flavor
to
of
call
flavor.
it we need to call it what it is. What it is, because all these people that are running around causing and like committing hate crimes are scared. They're scared of some imaginary story that they've made up in their head about this thing that is not in any way harmful, but that's what they're going to use to justify their actions.
Absolutely. Every time.
I want to talk about and just give us a run through of a safety plan. I love the way that was phrased. I think that people across the world could benefit from this, because this is something that is that can be universal, that intimate partner violence.
Yes, my friend. And I will tell you this. My safety plan consisted of me really first and foremost informing. I had to inform my loved ones of my situation. So information is key. And that was what I was doing. I was sharing information with those who I knew that could be supportive in my safety plan. Once I had information, shared the information, then the second part of my safety plan was then a destination. I knew for myself that either leaving the city of Jacksonville, which is where I was at with my ex-husband, or either leaving the state of Florida was going to be the safest bet for me. I knew in my heart I didn't want to go somewhere he would instantly know, because in your safety plan, a lot of times, especially if unhinged relationships, and very, you've met the families, they into the loved ones' homes, and so if they know where these people live. And I didn't also want to keep in mind the safety. I didn't want to be in a home with my loved ones, and then my ex-husband came, and it was a travesty. And so for me, that safety plan included a destination. So information, choosing a destination, a safe destination where they would not even think of. And I thought to myself, why not Los Angeles, California? This is the time to do so. And so I chose that. And then the third part of it was really, and the key part of it, really choosing a time and date to be able to leave my abuser. And this had to be a time and date that would conflict with his schedule, right? Like, he would not be able to be at home with me. He would not be able to monitor me. He would not be able to keep physical eyes on me. So I had to be able to get everything done. And so it was a time and date, summer 2019. He was, having a buddies trip. Everything seemed all good. I'm a loving wife, and I'm putting on the yes, see you when you get back home. And I was gone, Nika. And and I of course, in terms of like the divorce and the uncoupling proceedings, I made sure all of that was left for him. Things for him to sign, like divorce papers and stuff, of like information on where I was located, or a new phone number or email address. All of that was not privy to him at all. So again, as you develop your safety plan, make sure that you share the information with those individuals who can be there, be those key contributors, key assailants who's going to help you get this plan in action. And then again, you want to figure out what destination, a safe destination they are not familiar with. Somewhere that maybe it's a safe space for you that maybe you kept to yourself, right? Somewhere where they cannot track you. And then lastly, choosing a time and date to leave. And this has to conflict with the perpetrator and the violator's schedule, where they cannot be able to monitor or track you with their own physical self, right? And so that not only get out safely, but you also have people that are with you who are going to keep you safe. Because like, what if he had came back, right? What if that was a test and he really wasn't leaving? And then, at least, even if so, my family would have still been there with me to say, no, she's still leaving, and so again, make sure that you have that buddy system, that support.
I love that. I love that. Thank you so much. That is a brilliant resource for anybody out there listening who doesn't know what to do, who isn't sure where to turn, how to do it, to have something in place that you can put together that allows you to get from point A to point B safely. That's a transition for your life. You're going into a whole new reality, but you need that support. So, yeah, that's huge.
And remember, safety, I didn't mean to cut you off, my sister. I just wanted to say that's the physical safety part. But remember, you all safety. So once you got into your new location, once you're getting set, you got to deal with that impact, right? You have to deal with this emotional trauma. So then being able to have a mental health safety plan, because sometimes it get hard, right? You may miss that person. The good times, you reflect, you're single now, and you're feeling it's the holidays, but making sure that you have that sense of, like you said, support, but mental health resources. Okay, to seek a group therapy, right? Group therapy, support groups, all of those things. So once you get settled in, once you kind of exhaled from, the physical, you're in a physical safe space, not prepared to work on your mental health and its safety, right? Keeping that safe, to not go backwards, to not, give in and miss that person, to not want to trigger warning, take your own life because you blamed yourself. All of those things you have to kind of work on, especially for those who are survivors of intimate partner violence. So there's a physical safety and a mental health safety plan as well.
Beautiful. Oh my gosh. Yes, yes. So we are gonna wrap up here in just a little bit. And we didn't get deep into this, but for a couple of minutes, I would love to just talk to you a bit about resources for people out there who are dealing with HIV, and any resources you might have on hormone replacement therapy. I merged them. My bad.
No, you are perfect. And absolutely, there are so many great resources you all out there for those, especially if you're queer, trans, and living with HIV, and you're Black, Brown, Indigenous, Asian Pacific Islander, however you show up in this space. So many great HIV resources. One of my favorite is Gilead. Gilead is one of those resources that they do so much awareness. They are some of the leading in about PrEP, pre-exposure prophylaxis, post-exposure prophylaxis, which is PEP, and then also, again, our antiretroviral ART. So they're really pivotal. And right now, for those who are HIV, know that you may be eligible for an HIV injection now, opposed to the oral tablets. So Gilead is a huge proponent for all of those resources, especially around HIV. They have an advocacy network, so if you get involved, if you're someone like my HIV, I personally live with HIV. I live undetectable with HIV since 2011. That year was a double whammy. I lost Melanie, and then I also got diagnosed with HIV. So I've been living, undetectable now for 13 years. But, part of that resource for me back, and this was in Montgomery, Alabama. I was still in undergrad and college. But what was really helpful for me was, being able to reach out to Gilead, and they directed me to the Copeland Care Clinic. That was a resource for me. Lastly, secondly, was the ViiV Healthcare. ViiV Healthcare is another HIV platform. They provide healthcare, antiretroviral ART, and then also Plume provides HRT, hormone replacement therapy. And they also work with community members who live with HIV. So what they'll try to do is Plume will try to make sure that not only do they help you get your antiretrovirals, but they'll also try to help you get your hormone replacement therapy too. So there's been a lot of partnerships with HRT providers and ART providers because, some of us who are trans, we're taking hormone replacement therapy, but we're also taking medicine for our HIV. And so it's really important to make sure that there's a healthy balance, and the medicines are all, even Steven. So, it all works cohesively. And those are just a few of the many, many resources. I'll definitely send you more, Nika, but those are kind of like my top
30. Oh my God. Thank you for all of this beautiful conversation.
Oh, thank you. I'm so sorry. It took me forever, girl. Life has been life in me, but you were so patient, you and Miss Betty, and I was just so graceful. And thank you all. And just remember, for this Trans Day of Remembrance, be kind, be caring, and most importantly, be empathetic. We all.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Oh, thank you, everybody out there for joining us today. The ItCast, Real Talk on Sex, is our community outreach podcast that increases diversity in conversations on health and sexuality. And through this work, we're creating a world where all people feel loved, honored, and respected. This work is brought to you by the House of Sherelle. You can check out our online store at triggerhappytoy.com and learn more about our work at nikasherelles.com. This episode is also brought to you by the International Institute for Sexual Empowerment, a 501c3 nonprofit that is creating a safe space to talk about sex. If you would like to talk to me one-on-one and get coaching, please book a connection session on my Calendly. Ask me anything. I want to hear from you, and it's beautiful to be a part of this community. Please get access to our bonus content on Patreon. We're about to have a little kiki, so check that out on Patreon and learn more about the ItCast. Subscribe to this YouTube channel and share with your community. Thank you so much. How you feeling?
I am feeling so incredibly thankful. I am just super, super appreciative of both of you, Nika and Miss Betty, just for your patience, your grace. Thank you for this opportunity to discuss a hateful homicide, the work that's being done, being able to say our beautiful community members' names. Thank you all from the bottom of my heart.
Absolutely. Betty, you're on mute.
That was an amazing episode. That was really amazing. I'm sorry that the video wasn't exactly what I wished it had been. It wasn't as clear as I'd like it to be, but I heard everything that you said, and it was really moving. And yeah, I mean, I'd love to be able to put in when we post this on YouTube, I want to make sure that I get those resources in the information. I know it's Gilead. What were the other two that you mentioned?
Oh, yes, Beeb Healthcare, BIIB, and healthcare. And then the last one was Plume, PLUME.
Okay, great.
Yes, I'm so excited. I get the chills when we have opportunities like this to be able to contribute. So, like when you hit those resources and the plans and everything, it was like
that was the best. That was so amazing because, you know, the last thing people think about or when someone's in crisis, they don't know what to do, and they haven't even thought all the way through to it. And what you were able to contribute was so life-saving.
Yeah.
I appreciate you all, and it was life-saving for me. It really was. It was. I don't know if I hadn't thought of a safety plan where my journey would be now today, but I want to keep as many of us safe, especially as life keeps life and the next 4 years occur and we're even here in LA County, we're getting a little bit of that kind of COVID trickling back in. So, just thinking of like if we have to social distance again, and that's a high rate of intimate partner violence like it was in 2020, how can you keep yourself safe this time if you have to social distance again, or if you need to flee from a spouse? Just knowing those 3 ways to kind of prepare yourself. I wanted people to know that because it really was pivotal for me.
Yeah.
I can't wait to see the episode, you all. Thank you for having me. I appreciate you.
Welcome. I believe we're gonna have this one out. It's actually gonna be out on Friday. And it'll be really, really beautiful to just have this conversation live and well. Betty, is there anything?
Yeah, I mean, I was just trying to decide whether we could get it out on Wednesday. Do you think you want to do that, Nika?
We can do that.
I would love that. Please. I can't wait to see it too.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, because it was fairly seamless, it won't require much editing. My concern would be just to get those clips out that, for social media.
Yeah, getting the clips for Dorcas and making sure that she nails it. We should make sure that it says new episode when it's posted, since it's been a little while. And yeah, okay. I like the sound of that. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I just feel like it would give so much power to that day.
I agree. And I don't want to get it out like too late past this. So I think that's good. If we can pull it off, let's do it.
I believe in you all. This is the dream team. You got this. Hashtag I believe in you.
Yes.
Oops, I didn't record any of this. No.
Behind the scenes.
I was looking in the corner at the recording thing, and I'm like, that would have been really, really shitty if I somehow didn't capture it all.
Oh my God. Oh.
I'm not gonna pull that one.
No, please don't. I know.
Oh.
Thank you for this. And I
Yeah.
look so forward to seeing how everything turns out. And if you need anything, please do not hesitate to reach out. I hope to do this again with you all in the future. Definitely, Trans Day of Visibility will be in March. So let me know if y'all want to do something around then. We can circle back. But thank you for your time this evening. And I will let y'all get back to editing and hosting.
Okay. Awesome.
Thank you. Mwah.
Have a great night. It's nice to meet you, Betty.
Too.
Nice to meet you, Mel. Take care.
Thank you.